To keep the momentum going, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Seng Chow, who brings over 20 years of public service experience and currently serves as the head of digital transformation at the Government Procurement Function Office, Ministry of Finance. He leads whole of government efforts to digitalize procurement processes, enhancing effectiveness and user experience while aligning with Singapore's Smart Nation goals. Mr. Sang integrates procurement systems with other corporate systems and leverages data and analytics to advance governance and procurement strategy. Previously, he was Head of Operations, Research and Analytics at the Joint Plans and Transformation Department in the Singapore Armed Forces. Now, I'd like to invite Mr. Sang to present his views on implementing e-procurement systems for efficiency and transparency. The floor is all yours, Mr. Sang.
Right, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. A very good day to all participants of the 4th International Procurement Conference 2024. This is an online event, and I understand that there would be at least 4,000 participants from more than 150 countries. So I understand, and I thought that I would show some pictures of Singapore City, where I'm speaking from, and hopefully you will make Singapore your choice of visit in the near future. It is my pleasure to share and contribute today. I'm Chow, currently leading the digital transformation team in the Government Procurement Function Office in the Ministry of Finance, Singapore. Just a bit about myself. I'm a retired military officer from the Singapore Armed Forces, where I spent about 15 years of my life as part of the capability development community, as an architect for force transformation, as a vision lead for future technologies, and as a guardian of military resources. I will be sharing on Singapore government procurement, the role of procurement to support public service, and the increasing expectations on procurement to deliver values and outcomes in an increasingly challenging environment. I will also mention about the Government Procurement Function Office in the Ministry of Finance, our vision as a functional leader, and our business model. I will share about the Government Electronic System, GBS in short, and how it has transformed over the years to better serve the Singapore government needs. Next, I think we can all agree that life is never always a bed of roses. I did a storyboard, which I'll show later on, to illustrate the current limitations of GBS, the electronic system that we have, and the areas where the current business processes are cumbersome and to some extent painful to our users. Of course, these limitations will be opportunities for us to improve and enhance. Lastly, I do hope to share some views on data that we have that comes along with our systems. Procurement plays a critical role in supporting the public service in Singapore. Each year, the total procurement value is about a quarter of Singapore government expenditure, estimated at 26 billion Singapore dollars. Many stakeholders are involved, ranging from public officers to our suppliers. On average, we handle about 13,000 quotations and 3,500 tenders annually. Procurement function has served the public service well yesteryears, but it will not be business as usual in years to come. It is no rocket science that there will be more expectations on procurement to deliver better values and outcomes in an increasingly challenging and complex operating environment. So, what does this mean to our procurement community, to us, and how will this affect our daily work? And what are the implications to our forward planning and considerations? We face higher uncertainties due to geopolitical tensions, rising costs, inflation, speculations on rate cuts, and supply chain risk. Resource is finite and will always be a constraint. We have to identify center of gravities and invest wisely. Invest in where it matters most. We can plan as best as we can. But the fact is that digital technology is advancing at a speed and disrupts our business models, our business plans. If we do not infuse or exploit what technology offers to the world to us, we will lose the comparative advantage exponentially over time. The Singapore government is open and transparent to our people, and our business must stand up to public scrutiny, and we emphasize on accountability. Procurement has a big role to play in support of the wider Singapore national objectives, for example, green transition and progressive wages. The Singapore Ministry of Finance, MOF in short, advances leading ideas, drives synergies across the government, and ensures fiscal prudence and sustainability. As part of the ministry's overall mission to advance the well-being and development of Singapore, the Government Procurement Function Office, GPFO, in MOF, is the designated procurement functional leader across government agencies. As a functional leader, GPFO sets policies for government procurement, takes charge of procurement capability development and transformation, raise, train, and sustain our core competencies. Our procurement policies are underpinned by principles of fairness, transparency, and value for money. We manage GBIS, our electronic system, a platform for government agencies to call procurement tenders. While MOF GPFO sets the policy, the conduct of procurement is decentralized to government agencies subjected to their own respective internal audits. We have a clear vision for government procurement function, which is to match market solutions to meet government needs, achieve cost savings, meet public service delivery standards and goals, and to optimize our resources. We advise, we guide, and we help our stakeholders in their procurement journey. As the leader, we persevere to modernize, digitalize, and innovate to enhance operational efficiency, maintain good governance, and ensure value for money for the government. Singapore is party to the 1994 Agreement on Government Procurement under the World Trade Organization. The Government Procurement Act reflects Singapore's international commitments and forms the foundation of our procurement policies. The execution of procurements is decentralized to the individual ministries, departments, and statutory boards, collectively termed as Government Procurement Entities, GPEs in short. GPEs are required to adhere to central procurement guidelines issued by the Ministry of Finance, such as the Instruction Manual on Procurement. There are also measures targeted at procurement officers to strengthen their core competencies and to guard against corruption risk. As a city-state, Singapore does not have local governments or sub-central authorities. Hence, as mentioned earlier, bulk of the government procurement activities in Singapore are decentralized to individual ministries, departments, organs of states, and statutory boards. However, they must adhere to the central procurement guidelines issued by MOF. Centralized purchasing is carried out for common goods and services, and government agencies can purchase off-white, service-wide contracts. GBIS is the platform for procurement serving both government agencies and suppliers. For government agencies, depending on the estimated value of the procurement, the procedure adopted could be through small value purchases, inviting quotations or tenders. For suppliers, tender notices and quotations are posted on the GBIS website. It also informs on tender schedules and awards, public sector listings of integrative opportunities for the whole financial year. As a guide, these opportunities are usually more than 200,000 Singapore dollars. By now, I'm sure the 4th IPC knows that the Singapore government adopts the fundamental principles of fairness, openness, and competitiveness for its government procurement policies. Tenders are evaluated fairly, regardless of size or nationality, and awarded to the bid that brings the best value for money for the public sector, taking a holistic approach. GB serves about 137 government agencies, 14,000 users, and about 117,000 suppliers. For government officers, GB's functions range from pre-procurement, such as seeking of approval of requirements, raising purchase requests, sourcing and buying, to contracting, and thereafter contract management and supplier management. On the supplier front, GBs will register suppliers as our valued trading partners, offers business opportunities, and facilitates the necessary procurement processes to getting their payments. To do so, GBs is interfaced with central finance system to facilitate invoicing and payment. We started our GBs journey more than 2 decades ago. Back then, GBs 1.0 focused to digitalize our processes from physical hard copies. Just for a quick reference, for some of us here, do we recall the 1999 millennium bug where many older computers and devices couldn't recognize the year 2000? And yes, that was a time when we are still using Windows 98, and NVIDIA just launched the GeForce 256 chip. That was the state of technology back then. Around 2016, we did our upgrade to GBs 2.0, and we are still using it today. GBs 2.0 has served us well over the years, and there was much improvement to our business processes, user interfaces, and capabilities. This was done iteratively with user feedback over the years. However, given the potential technology possibilities, especially Gen AI, it is compelling for system owners like us to do our forward planning to ensure that we can continue to be relevant, efficient, and effective. We will need to build a next-gen system that is digitalized, able to automate our processes, and equipped with useful tools to help our users in their daily work. I will share our vision for the next-gen system later. But before that, I would like to give an illustration to compare the daily work today for our procurement officer, Mr. James, versus what we hope it will be like for him tomorrow. Let me orientate everyone to the slide. The upper box represents GBs 2.0. The lower box represents the next-gen system. Now, James, Mr. James, is a newbie to an agency. He is trained in procurement, but he has little or no operational experience. Fortunately or unfortunately, he was asked to acquire a new system which he is not familiar with. So for a start, James knows that there are 3 things that you need to work on. Number 1, to establish the need for the system. Number 2, to determine the procurement approach. And number 3, to specify the requirements of the system. James, being inexperienced, may find it challenging to search and compile the information within a short time, especially if his boss is an impatient one. Okay, I'm not James, and I'm thankful that my bosses are very nice and patient with me. But now James may find the information gathering process cumbersome and time-consuming today. So what we did was we surveyed many James from many agencies, and they told us what we could do to make their lives easier. Common feedback includes knowledge repository for fast and accurate search returns. Ideally, if we can all have a chatbot, and we can just tell the chatbot what we need, and the chatbot comes back with suggestion on options and supporting justifications, that is maybe about 70 to 80% correct. Our job could be done much faster, and decisions made will be more informed. But we know that it is probably not possible for now. But meanwhile, the crux is, how can we operationalize this capability at scale with optimal resources. Next, after some time, James managed to publish the tender in GBs. While waiting for the tender to close, James started to think of his next steps. He knows that he will need to evaluate the tender returns, seek approval for the evaluation report before he can award it. He started asking his colleagues and bosses for past templates and processes. And he finds the step to be very manual and very laborious, and it's time consuming. He has to manually tabulate the evaluation scores and send waves of email clarifications to the suppliers. And he needs to archive them properly for future audit purposes. In the new system, we hope that features such as automated tender evaluation with price benchmarking capabilities made available to James for him to quickly evaluate the tender returns. James would love to have a collaborative platform within the system for direct communications with his superiors and suppliers. A smart dashboard will also help James better monitor his work portfolio because as he progresses in his career, he'll be tasked to manage multiple ongoing and more complex procurement tasks. Next, James needs to award and manage contracts. By now, he knows that he can get the job done, but it will require him to manually extract information from the contract and monitor it using a project management chart on a separate platform. We hope that the future system could allow James to perform these roles without the need to manually extract information and the need to switch between platforms. This slide gives an idea of the vision that we have for our future system. Now, everyone must be thinking, how do we come up with this? Obviously, there are colleagues in my team who uses Google, own iPhones, wear Nike products, love gaming, and I think maybe someone owns a Tesla. And now, jokes aside, I must confess that our vision is larger than the space available on this slide. But the point here is that the vision of many successful companies and organizations out there are useful reference points for us to learn from. I wanted to share some planning considerations when studying options for our next-gen system or future system. This may and may not be applicable to you, depending on your context. The list here is certainly not exhaustive. And I would just like to highlight two key points here, which I call double S. First S, streamline. We need to review existing processes and practices first, and do so with the end user in mind. We need to conduct business process reviews, identify current inefficiencies, and we try to optimize that first before we go into solutioning. The key here is we don't simply take away the inefficiencies, or you may get a set of digitalized inefficient processes. The second S, see across. We need to go beyond our traditional boundaries. We need to see across processes, from budgeting to procure and to payment. We need to engage our partners, be it suppliers or buyers. This means that we will need to work with our finance counterparts as well, and the industries to find out the best outcome for the user. In all, this planning process is definitely not trivial, and there will be a need for prioritization and hard trade-offs to be made along the way. Sorry. Now, anybody recall hearing this from one of the Spider-Man movies? With great power comes great responsibility. So if I may borrow what Spider-Man said, and if there are no violent objections, may I create this statement for this fourth IPC 2024 as a takeaway gift to all who had given me their attention for the past 30 minutes or so. With great systems comes great data. Sir Timothy said, data is a precious thing and will last longer than the systems themselves. Do we all agree to this? I do, definitely. For data, our vision is focused on ensuring that our officers have the right data to make smart and informed decisions for their agencies. This means that whenever our officers require data, the data must be of high quality and readily accessible. Our officers must be able to use the data to recommend and make decisions. They must be able to use data to enhance their daily operations. Today, we are in a state where we are data rich, but there is room for improvement for the information and insights that we are getting from our data sets. Broadly, I would say that there are three areas that we will need to tackle on to move towards our data vision. First, data gaps. I think from my earlier presentation and learning from James, we know that our current systems are not fully digitalized, with substantial offline processes and data that are not being captured. Secondly, data silos. Data silos are formed when we develop systems over different time span and over different technology readiness. Third, we need to curate the right competencies and courses to train our people, and at the same time, balance between their work and hygiene issues. Now, before I end my presentation, I would like to share a short video clip on AI trials that my office is doing so that we can extract insights from our current GB's data.
Data can be overwhelming for someone who is not familiar with it. Context and recommended questions are immediately surfaced, helping our officers to get started exploring data fast. Questions can be asked in natural language, and AI will help to return appropriate results where officers can easily drill down and follow up to gain actionable insights on.
With this, I hope that my sharing is useful and we can all continue to exchange and share ideas in years to come. Thank you and have a great IPC 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Sang, for that engaging presentation. I've been monitoring the chat and it's clear your ideas have sparked a lot of interest. It would be really great if you could answer a few questions from the audience.
Yeah, sure.
So the first question we have is, how can digital tools support sustainability initiatives within supply chain operations? And how can digitization help meet evolving customer expectations for transparency and responsiveness in the supply chain?
Sorry, Aini, can you kindly repeat the question? I think I got half of it.
Yeah, so the first part of the question is, how can digital tools support sustainability initiatives within the supply chain operations? And the second part of the question is, how can digitization can help meet customer expectations, which can ultimately lead to transparency and responsiveness in supply chain?
Thank you for the questions. Are there any more questions? Maybe I can just combine them and take them as a whole.
Yes. So the second question that we would really like you to answer is, if you could outline the critical components of a successful e-procurement implementation plan.
Okay, that's two. That the first one is about supply chain. The second is about a successful implementation plan.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I can do the second one first, which is what I think I have prepared, but I I think I've shared the materials. I'm not sure whether the materials will be shared with all the with all the audience over here. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Is I I I would say that to come up with an e-procurement system, there are many things to consider. And I'm coming from the government perspective. And if you are a private company, the considerations could be different. And as what I mentioned earlier in my speech, it depends on the context and the planning considerations will differ. So for the government, for Singapore government, we plan based on many consideration factors. And as you can see over here, the boxes over here, these are the bigger considerations, but there are a lot of smaller considerations. The two that I highlighted for see across and streamline, basically, I highlighted these two because these are the more tedious and more laborious part where we have to engage all our stakeholders, which I mentioned earlier on. There are 134 and 137 government agencies. There are a lot of public officers with different opinions on how they want things to be like for them. And so that's why I only emphasize on the two. But if you look at the other bubbles, they are not small bubbles. They're not trivial. Let me give you an example. I'll just pick anyone. Future-proof and seeding AI capabilities. It's just a bubble over here. But to us, as a developer or as a business owner, teaming up with our tech counterparts and also the industries, it requires hours and hours, days and months of discussion because the state of readiness, the TRL or technology readiness level of different capabilities are different. But we want something that is future-proof. When you buy a system, when you own a system, it probably has to work for 5, 10 years or more than that. And we must make sure that whatever that is available, it is in the system. Whatever that is coming up, it can be in the system. And whatever that haven't come up, maybe in the system, but must be able to be put into the system. So this is just an example. And I mean, we can talk more about this offline, but I think there are a lot more considerations depending on, like what I said, where you come from. Maybe I'll just share one more. That is the part about change management. You know, change management is painful to everyone. Today we have our own systems, and people are used to the system. People don't want to change. They are resistant to change. But they know that they need to change. But they are just resistant. So how do we move them to change from the old system to the new system? This takes time. Change management is not only about people. It's also about the data. How do you migrate the data over to the new system? So there are many things that we will need to think of when building, when we want to build a new system, and what is success? So how do we define success? We have to think about the success matrix as well. So I think it's not trivial, and the wisdom is certainly not from a single person. It has to be a team. When we are building our new system, in the future, when we're building our new system, we'll need a big team, a team from the tech, from the industry, from the government, from agencies and users on the ground, from suppliers as well. So in fact, it's going to involve a lot of people and a lot of brain juice from everyone. So I encourage people here, I mean, to share more and also to gain some insights from what everyone is thinking in this conference. Yep, that's for the second question. Is there another question, or I'll go back to the supply risk?
Yes, well, thank you for answering this question. I think it was wonderfully explained. Now, we also have like another question from our audience, which deals with the long-term cost savings, which can, help organizations realize by transitioning to e-procurement systems. So what kind of like cost saving methods, or what kind of things that organization can do while they are transitioning to e-procurement systems?
this question is good. There are, I mean, to me, there are two terms: cost savings, cost avoidance.
Yeah.
So you can save costs, you can avoid costs. So they are quite close to each other. And I would say that both of them, both elements might exist, must be part of the planning considerations. What you can avoid in your expenditure, and also what you can save from your expenditure. I would say that if you don't want to spend too much money and you don't want to waste money, the first thing that you will need to do, like what I say, is still this like planning considerations. You have to plan carefully. You have to think of your move and every step carefully. And you need to have a holistic plan. The vision statement, the mission statement, and your planning considerations, and your subsequent scope must be very clear. And you will not go on to the wrong road. Because the moment you choose something wrong and make a wrong move, you're going to pay a lot more. So you have to be very clear on what do you exactly want as a mission? What is the mission statement? And what is your vision? And also, what are your key planning considerations and how you prioritize them? You remember earlier on in my presentation, I said that there are hard trade-offs to be made. If you ask 10%, 10% will give you 20 ideas. And if you have to pay for 20 ideas, you're going to pay a lot more. But if you prioritize them, maybe group them together, maybe tell some of them, maybe you can adjust the way you work and you operate. Can you drop this requirement? Then you probably can save more. So this is a way of saving some costs and also avoiding some costs. Now I'll just leave this for here, and maybe we can discuss further and see what others have to share in the subsequent presentation.
Well, thank you for those insightful answers. Your presentation has given us all much to think about and implement in our own organizations. Thank you, Mr. Sang.
Yeah, maybe I just want to address the supply chain topic.
Yes, definitely.
I do have a lot of knowledge of supply chain because previously I'm from a military background. Supply chain risk is always one of the key consideration factors that in our planning considerations. But I don't think I have enough time. I'm not fair to share them just in a matter of few words. I think we can discuss further online. Whoever that are keen, we probably can go through the organizers. We can have a chat on that. But I do have a lot of thinkings and feelings about supply chain risk, and they are real because of the geopolitical situations in our region, in the world, and also the rising cost, inflation, things like that. Yeah. And COVID-19 did play a big part in that as well. Right, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sang. I think whoever wants to have this conversation ahead can definitely connect to Mr. Sang for further discussions.